Hello everyone, welcome to my Resident Evil 6, no hope difficulty, no life cube loss walkthrough, and this is chapter 3 of Leon's campaign. And this chapter is probably my least favorite chapter in Leon's campaign, and it's literally because it just doesn't feel like you're doing much, and then the encounters are very simple. The only time they're not so simple is when you're doing the section wrong. That's the only way you can possibly make the section take longer, or just be more difficult, but for the most part, if you just follow exactly what happens in this walkthrough, it's not a problem whatsoever. And then there's just a lot of moments where Leon's just not doing anything. So I've trimmed out long sections of such gameplay. Like for instance, that part where you have to separate from Helena, and then Helena has to lower that bridge for you. I've trimmed out so much of that part, and I've only included the parts where you have to kill key enemies, and Leon actually has threats against certain zombies. Those are the only parts I left in, and then also I've sped up the swimming sequence before the Burzak boss fight, and then I've removed the whole moment where Helena is supposed to protect Leon, because it's so simple. Like, you don't need any kind of strategy for it. All you gotta do is just shoot the Burzak's tongue when it tries to attack Leon, and you'll be fine. And the AI is very competent in trying to do so, so long as you're not moving too fast. It's very simple. But these beginning parts of Chapter 3 demand a little bit more effort. And cool thing about this section, I saw Lightning Fidelis do a cool trick where he managed to throw an incendiary grenade over to the guy who's controlling the fire trap, and he didn't have to bother boosting his partner up. And as you can see, I'm trying to do the same trick here, but since this is my first time doing it, I'm not well versed with how you're supposed to aim the incendiary grenade in order to hit the guy who's controlling the trap. So I end up wasting 2 incendiary grenades, but it doesn't matter because we will get more back. And right there, I got very lucky. I completely neglected the fact that this guy was coming, but thankfully he didn't try to grab me. The dynamite guys on this game are even more inconsistent compared to Resident Evil 4 and 5 because they seem to prolong their dynamite even longer than usual, and then sometimes the dynamite just blows up for no reason. So once you interact with the door, it's going to allow you to place the ring that you got in Chapter 2 inside of there. The door's going to open. And right here, you need to be very fast here because you need to get back under the blade trap before this cutscene plays. While this cutscene is playing, the enemies are moving. And if you're not fast enough, they will attack you. But thankfully right there, that guy who was trying to do the jump attack on me, I was completely invulnerable during that whole entire cutscene moment, so he couldn't do anything. And I'm going under the blade trap right now because staying in that area and just trying to use the fire trap is not the best method because the enemies can spawn behind you as well. And it's not the kind of thing you'd want to do on a no life cube loss walkthrough. And whenever any enemies decide to come towards you, just deal with them. Most of the enemies that come towards you are going to be red zombies. So these guys will most likely transform into bloodshots if you try to counter them or do any kind of melee. But the bloodshots aren't so bad. All you gotta do is just stand at a distance and counter their jump attack. Because spamminess of any kind of attack should not be encouraged whatsoever when it comes to designing enemy AI. And that's why the counter system exists. It's to perfectly balance out the fact that these enemies can spam, but if they spam, they're going to screw themselves over. Something to note about the jump attack. The speed at which they initiate their jump attack can be different in 2 ways. First, they might try to roar, and then they do the jump attack. Other times, they'll just initiate the jump attack immediately, so you gotta be prepared for those scenarios when they do occur. I mean, dealing with bloodshots in Agent Hunt can be really annoying, because the player can literally just spam jump attack like crazy, or they can stay on the ground and just crawl, because killing bloodshots while they're just crawling on the ground is actually a lot harder than you think, because they aren't so keen on getting stunned by certain high tier attacks, or from like incendiary grenades for instance. That's why oftentimes when you encounter people playing as bloodshots in Agent Hunt, they're always lying on the ground, because they're far more resistant to damage when they're lying on the ground like that. And since this is really an easy section, and the rest of Chapter 3 is just very simple, because there's barely anything that really attacks you when you're playing as Leon, I'm going to talk about some of the other modes in this game. The first mode I want to discuss is Agent Hunt, which sounds like a cool idea, being able to invade other campaign sessions and being able to play as an enemy to kill the main characters, but the execution is very flawed. For one thing, like, you can invade sessions where people are playing with high-tiered weapons and have settings such as infinite ammo turned on, and this unfortunately screws with your ability to kill the main characters. Add that to the availability of ammo and the lack of damage on easier difficulties, and also the fact that controlling enemies that don't have the most fluid of movement is very, very frustrating. And honestly, it just feels like those enemies are far better off being controlled by an AI system because they actually seem to be even more competent when it actually comes to killing the main characters. And you just have a mode that honestly feels like it wasn't properly thought through. Like, this might be the case if you have like multiple players invading the exact same session, as there may be some coordination involved, but we're talking about public match players for crying out loud. Like, you think they're going to be so coordinated with you? Like, especially when you have the two different mindsets of a player who's actually not played Resident Evil 6 properly, and then having someone else play the game properly. Like, you can't have coordination between such individuals, unfortunately. And that's why I just don't like Agent Hunt mode. It's just a very flawed mode, and I just don't like playing it. And then we move on to the next mode, which is by far the worst mode I have ever seen designed for a game such as this. And it is Survivor's mode. And Survivor's mode is the literal definition of cancer, horseshit, and laziness all put together into a single mode. It is a mode that showcases what happens when Resident Evil 6's mechanics are used in a PvP setting, when the mechanics are specifically designed around co-op, and when tricks such as the third-person cover trick, sniper camera trick, weapon fire rate trick, iframe tricks, and quick shots are all used against human players instead of normal AI enemies. Like, all of that together helps in the griefing of players and the inflation of egos and assholes who think of themselves as being right all the time and being better than others. Like, if you ask me, if there's one place you will find the scum of the earth, it is in that mode. Like, that mode was so hated at launch that people tried to enforce their own rules, but unfortunately their own rules oftentimes turn the game into things like quickscoping from Call of Duty, and most of the time people only ever stuck to playing as only particular characters. Like, they only ever play as Jake, or Sherry, or Carla, simply because they had access to weapons such as sniper rifles or magnums. And if you can't understand the folly of putting a co-op game's mechanics into a PvP setting like that, then you are a literal idiot. I swear to God, you are a stupid fool. If you honestly think that such a situation is possible. Like, I can name several people who maintain this delusion that Survivor's mode is the best mode they have ever played. And I'm gonna tell those people to just screw the hell off. That's all I'm gonna tell those people. It's completely unforgivable, that mode. That mode should not have existed in the first place. And the same can be said for Resident Evil 5. The versus mode on that game is exactly the same as Survivor's mode with the exact same problems, and that mode shouldn't have existed either. Yet it somehow found its way into Resident Evil 6, which doesn't make any sense, because I recall that mode was not liked by a lot of people. And if that mode was not liked by a lot of people, why is it in Resident Evil 6? Like, what was the decision behind deciding to keep a mode that so many people didn't like? Like, I'll never understand why. But you know what I do understand? I understand why Mercenaries mode was kept in this game, because Mercenaries mode was actually a successful mode, and it is by far the most popular mode in all of Resident Evil 6's multiplayer history. Because it's just a well-designed mode. And on Resident Evil 6, it's even better because of the fact that you have so many enemy types, and you have the improvements to the combat system. Mercenaries mode has a lot more replayability. Now, Resident Evil 3 was the very first game to have the Mercenaries minigame, and it was a very fun mode on that game. Resident Evil 4 I didn't really like as much because the combat systems didn't really add a lot of replayability to the Mercenaries mode in that game. And then Resident Evil 5, because of the fact that the melee was co-op centric, Mercenaries mode was only ever good when you played with a co-op partner, but the problem is that all the enemies were defaulted to normal difficulty hell, so they died very quickly, so you never really got a chance to do a lot of combo attacks with your partner. But on this game, you know, like, the improvements to the combat system and then the amount of enemy types you're fighting make Resident Evil 6's Mercenaries mode so much more replayable. Like, you have so many maps, you have so many different characters to choose from. Like, I think this is a mode that is done very well, and it personifies Resident Evil's true mentality perfectly. So yeah, give Mercenaries mode a try if you haven't tried it out. But I'm gonna hold off on that particular tangent because we're in this sequence now. It's not that difficult, but there are a couple of encounters in this area that might give you some trouble. You know, you have Shriekers and then you have Whoppers. The encounters with the Whoppers are probably the most dangerous part of Chapter 3. Because you have the Whoppers and then you have the other enemy types supporting them. I mean, if you choose to deal with them, then they're a problem. Because, like, the first Whopper does nothing but the running attack. And the running attack tracks really well. And the second Whopper is not a problem whatsoever, because he just behaves like a normal Whopper, but the most dangerous part is encountering a Whopper while you're on a bridge. Because of the fact that they have a lot of weight, they shake the bridge, and they will make you flinch. And they will attack you during those flinch animations, so you gotta be careful. For the most part, you just want to avoid the whoppers. I mean, if you're confident in your ability to kill them, just go for it. But I just choose not to kill them because I don't want to waste time. You know, I appreciate it when the game runs at a particular pace. A pace that actually makes the game feel like it's not so repetitive, and, you know, it feels like there's actual flow to it. But if I'm just wasting my time trying to kill a bunch of big enemies like the whoppers, it's just going to drag the gameplay out. And that's why I just don't try to deal with them. I'm also playing with lightning, and I just deal with them because, at least with lightning, I can kill those guys very fast. I mean, the whoppers themselves aren't too bad. I mean, if you can master the counter timings against them, they're very easy. Their weakness is the legs. If you shoot them several times in both legs, they will actually fall over, and you can hit them with a coup de grace and do a lot of damage to them. But I've triggered the first whopper. Always jump to this side here because he's going to do nothing but the running attack, and he has some pretty good tracking on that running attack. But when you do jump over to this side, make sure you finish off the enemies that are behind you, so that they don't ambush you when you're trying to deal with this guy. When you stun this guy with the dynamite, I don't recommend going for the coup de grace, but if he does decide to recover, just go for the coup de grace, just to stun him a little bit, and I'm just going to try to run past him. But I guess I'm trying to linger about a little bit, I don't know why. Maybe I'm just trying to kill him right now, but then I'm just like, why the heck should I waste my time? I'm just gonna run away. I don't know why I'm doing this. There's no need for this, but I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the kill requirement for the S rank. Because, of course, this game forces you to kill all the enemies to get the S rank. Or not all of the enemies, just like most of the enemies. Watch out for the dynamite. I tried to run away, but I couldn't get away. But thankfully I got lucky that the dynamite guy wasn't being too obnoxious. Thankfully when they do go into the jump attack, when they land they do blow up, so you can use that to get them out of the way if they decide to become a nuisance. But this is right here. I'm just going to run away from him and just get on the bridge. Something to note, the game forces you to not sprint when you're on the bridges, so try to slide and cover some distance before actually moving on. Just be careful here. He's not going to stop following you. He will follow you down these bridges. There's the second whopper. He's not so much of a problem because he doesn't spam the running attack. So I'm just going to wait for him to come to me. There's that guy there. The whoppers can actually knock over other enemies, which is handy. And if you notice, that first whopper is actually much larger than the second whopper. I think he's called a Whopper Supreme. That's what they are. Whopper Supremes are significantly larger versions of the whoppers. Now, right here, I believe they can actually jump over to this platform. I think I had a moment where that happened. I can't recall the incident correctly. It was pretty surprising when I saw them do that. And I'm trying to help my AI partner out because this is a moment where you need to separate with Helena. And I've already mentioned that I'm going to be heavily editing this part because it lasts for quite a long time. I mean, it's not too long. It lasts for, I don't know, about 5 minutes. But it's just... To make it easier on myself when it comes to commentating these videos, I just wanted to trim it out. And, you know, there's just not much to discuss with what's happening. Like, I appreciate it when I have something to at least talk about within the video. But when it's just me just standing still, you know, having to help out an AI partner who's very competent when it comes to running past the enemies, there's nothing to really talk about at that point. But the section begins now, once I actually boost Helena over. So this first part here, you need to protect Helena, because a bunch of zombies are going to try to attack her while she's climbing. And if you don't hit them fast enough, she'll slip off and she'll fall. But the game doesn't allow you to look down directly at your feet, unfortunately. That's like that in Evil Within as well, where for some reason you can't look all the way down at your foot for some reason. Really don't like it when moments like that happen. It's the same when you're trying to aim upward. You know, there's a limit on how much you can aim upward. It's one of the main reasons why when I'm dealing with the chopper, when I'm playing as Jake and Sherry in Chapter 4, I just always lie down on the ground because it allows me to aim up a little bit higher. But there's the trim. I'm just showcasing the moments where I kill the Shrieker and I kill the Whopper because those are the key enemies you definitely need to eliminate. The Whopper and the Shrieker cause Helena a lot of trouble when she's trying to, you know, lower the bridge for you. And then right here, some of the enemies will try to come after you, but they aren't a problem whatsoever, and they will drop rifle ammo in case you run out of ammo. And like I said before, this chapter is just not hard in the slightest. It's very simple, because you're just not doing much, and there's the Whopper right there. Once again, I'm trying to shoot his legs, and as you can see, he's rocking the bridge right now, so that's why Helena's getting stunned all the time, and I've got to save her. And he's about to die in one shot. There we go. And I've just skipped directly to this part where Helena just lowers the bridge for Leon. I mean, there's just a bunch of enemies that will come after Helena, and then there's one enemy that might come after you if you're playing as Leon. It's not a problem whatsoever. Like, Leon has it easy on this section. Helena has it a little bit harder on this section. And if this was a walkthrough and I was playing as Helena, I would definitely include that whole entire moment, because Helena has to deal with a lot more enemies compared to Leon. But obviously, you don't need any help to figure out how to run around in circles and stand still and just twiddle your thumbs playing as Leon in this section. And yet people choose to include such moments in their walkthrough. Like, I can understand a no commentated version, because you're just showing the game off. I mean, unless you're just wandering in circles, not knowing what you're doing. I mean, then you should actually edit those parts out in a no commentated version. But for a commentated version, like, what exactly are you going to be talking about? You know? The whole point of a walkthrough is to help people out. Like, people who are actually struggling with the game, and then actually showing the game off at its best. And showing the game off at its best is you just running around in circles doing nothing. Like, obviously that's why I edited those parts out, because you're just not doing anything in that section, unfortunately. This right here, you're supposed to get a dynamite guy to blow up the platform you stood on. And I'm trying to shoot the dynamite right now, but instead I'm just going to go for the melee attack. That's just smarter. And right here, the dynamite actually blows up during the animation, which is very surprising. And then this part here, you don't have to rush this section, because apparently the platforms don't fall off unless you yourself get off the platform. You can stay on those platforms indefinitely, like Lightning Videl showed me, and it's really fascinating. And that right there is really cool. Friendly fire for the enemies is something that this game does greatly, more so than in the other Resident Evil games. That zombie fired an acid attack at the Whopper and it stunned it. That is so cool. Imagine being able to use a strategy of being able to get the enemies to hit each other, and that actually helped in a walkthrough. That would be so cool to find. But be very careful here. Like, the platforms can make you stumble, and if you accidentally stumble into an attack, you're going to take damage. So it's best you clear out the enemies in front of you before actually moving on. Or, I don't know, just go prone so that you don't flinch, and then deal with the section. It's perfectly fine. And this is the swimming part right here, which is very easy, that I've just decided to speed it up. I mean, the reason I'm speeding it up is because I'm trying to demonstrate that you don't have to surface up to every single air pocket. Like, you see how low my oxygen is? And I've already gotten to this next air pocket, and then the rest of this section is a breeze. I mean, just be careful with the enemies. They will drain your oxygen very quickly, and your partner can help you out, but because I'm swimming so fast, Helena's never near me. And then I've trimmed out the whole moment where Helena has to protect you, because that's pointless. There's no need for any help on that part. And now we're just fighting the Burzak. So the Burzak shoot his tongue when he decides to expose it. I mean, you have to shoot the tongue during very specific moments to actually progress the sequence. So right there, when the game goes slow motion, you've got to shoot the tongue. And then right here, you got to shoot the tongue again to force him to fall back. Just use your weapons. There we go. And then it's going to cue a cutscene where he's going to try to close in on you, and you got to dodge it with a quick time event. I mean, I like the idea of this, but, you know, it's a very simple fight. It's more so of a gimmick fight than an actual fight. I mean, it's cool being able to stand together with your partner against this BOW on its home turf. But, you know, it just feels like placeholder. And right here, just shoot the dynamite. Aim for the dynamite! And the sequence is over. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.